Okay, so we're taking a look at things to do for prep on the cabin before plaster. And one thing is a number of the panels are moving, and I'm going to probably recommend chicken wire, but stay tuned for that. But it's probably going to be chicken wire attached to the framing and pulled taut over any and all surfaces that have any amount of jiggle, which is most of them. The other potential alternative is to attach like a screw sticking out just slightly here and then one there, and kind of diagonally pull wire onto them so that it helps to hold those in place. These are all just going to be, recommendations of what I can see at this point, and then perhaps do another review. But I think all the windows would do well to have trim put on all the way around all sides. This window might potentially be replaced or fixed, and just always looking at edges and where plaster is going to come to. So for example, like here on this post here, we're going to leave this post exposed because it's really beautiful. So the straw needs to be taken down to a point where you can have a really nice clean detail of that plaster meeting the wood. So in this situation, we don't want straw extending past where a nice straight clean line of plaster would be. In this situation where you see straw covering framing, do not pull that straw. Straw in those scenarios is really helpful because it helps with adhesion over the wood. So anytime you see straw covering those members, leave that. But if you look and you see that there is straw that is proud of a general plane, such as this, that needs to be cut down or removed to try and make it look really nice and smooth. So the technique for that is first to start with your hand. I'm not going to pull on that because I actually need two hands, but this one's a little bit better. And you can just go at it with your hand. A lot of it's really easy to break. Wherever you can't pull it back with your hand, you can use different tools, different cutters, pruners, saws. Just try out a bunch of different tools. So all this straw needs to get brought back, taken out. Like this panel right here seems to be not falling out at all. So we might consider, where we see situations like that, just to go ahead and not put the chicken wire over that. But if there's any doubt, we'll do the chicken wire, I'm pretty sure. If you look up there, you can see there's straw that's proud of the line. So that all just needs to get cleaned up. This window would get trim around it. As far as this bottom edge goes, we can go ahead and just bring the plaster and just tuck it into this, and I'm satisfied with that, unless for some reason you all think about it and you feel that adding a small piece of 1x here as like a plaster stop could be helpful. I think I'm probably the one to make the call on that, and I'd say you have a lot of work to do, so you could probably skip that. Here's an interesting area. This is going to have to get brought back quite significantly in order to get the wood here, and I think the wood might just meet this piece of wood and might just have a nice angle cut on it to just come up to this. And I'm talking about the wood frame around that window. And then here in between these two posts, we don't want to plaster these posts. They look really beautiful. Anytime you don't have to have plaster going over wood is better. But we will try to do some kind of detail in here, I guess, just a small line, but just bring it way, 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 way down. Just take the majority of that straw way back. Around this door here, I think would be a really good opportunity for trim. So trimming the door out first gives us a really nice place to plaster up to and around. We're not going to plaster that round piece of wood up there. Anytime you see nails just sticking out kind of randomly like that one or that one, unless there's some purpose that for them later, if you could pull them, that would be really great. I guess just going back here, something I forgot to say is that it'll be really important to notice any areas where there are gaps and fill them. And there aren't too many, so it won't be a very big job. Feel free to make an extra clay-rich mix for that and shove that in. And that would be a really good first thing to do so that that can have the most time to dry possible. Okay, so we're back to the door, just going around the building, seeing what kind of details to discuss. This piece of wood we could also leave. It might look really nice, and in order to do that, it just all this straw needs to get really pulled back, something like to that, like that section right there. It would all look like that on both sides so that the plaster can just come up nicely to it. And then we meet with some interesting opportunities up here. I think this wood can just stay how it is, meaning the wood that you see, the different blocks with the nails, and we'll just bring our plaster up to that. This window would be really nice with some wood trim around it, but doesn't really need it, I guess, because it does really have this, which is like the trim. So I guess that could get skipped here, and we can just bring the plaster up to this. This one isn't loose, so I guess we don't really need chicken wire on these. To make the plaster have the best chance of sticking here, I think we should put little screws every 2 to 3 inches sticking out like a ½ inch, and then make a premix of maybe shorter straw and clay, and go ahead and smush that premix all into the screws so that it looks kind of like this surface when we're finished, and then we can just put the base coat over that. Yeah, so I think you scratch that. You won't really need to put trim around that window because essentially that's what that design already has in place. But certainly this needs to get pulled down to a plane that looks like this, and it needs to get tied in there. So going along, you're just like looking at the edges and imagining how the plaster would be, and I think we'll just use this as a plaster stop in this scenario and just come up from that. And this post and this post we'll leave. This gives an example of how those 2 round poles on that far right side could look after being done, just with most of that straw taken out, and we can just do like a little clay grout in there. But on this edge we need all of this straw pulled back really nice and clean from this post. Coming around to this side, these walls are looking pretty good. We need the straw removed from this left side of this post, just to really bring it back to like there, and not sticking out at all, so that we can just bring our plaster right up to a nice line on that. Looks like some straw needs to get pulled from up there. This could be a scenario for just bringing the plaster in and kind of creating an edge. All of this will need to get removed, or you know, a piece of 1 by 1x2 or whatever could get put here, and that could be a really nice plaster stop for this bottom area. Let's go ahead and plaster over this particular piece, so don't pull any straw away from any of this. And seems like around this door could be an opportunity for some wood trim, or we can just bring the plaster over this. And if we do bring it over, I think that detail I described before would be really nice, like taking screws and kind of peppering this surface with the screws, with the screws sticking out 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch, and then making a mixture of straw and clay and just really smushing it in there and getting it all attached, all mishmashy, and spreading it onto this so that it primed the wood for being able to hold the plaster that would come on it. Lots of straw pulling and breaking to get it nice for being a nice smooth plane. This needs detailing out. All this straw can get removed from here. Kind of the same thing all around, but it's good just to look at these details. Same thing here. This is all excessive. These two windows I think would look really nice with wood trim. So, you know, you could skip putting the wood trim on the top, but putting it on both sides and the bottom beforehand would be ideal. And then that would mean that you don't really need to plaster this. Maybe we would just either pick a conventional or a natural grout that we could make to just stuff in there and provide some protection from the wind. These panels are all kind of loose. This one's not. So like this panel would be one that you could skip, but maybe starting with this one right here and this one. I'm pretty sure the chicken wire route is gonna be a good one, and that's just really making sure that, I think with like, you know, a staple would be best, but that it's very taut against the straw after filling any gaps and after pulling any excess straw away. Jude has a great design here to have a cold box for food, so that would be best to have it built first, and then we'll just know what we're plastering up to. Any areas like this you can just go ahead and fill them in with that clay rich kind of shorter straw business, or any other material that you guys decide is good. Going ahead and filling all these gaps. You know, I feel pretty good about this whole bottom section. So I'd say you don't need to put any chicken wire on this bottom section, and you can see how the straw is covering the wood members, and that is just really ideal. But these upper two, I think pulling the chicken wire over those, and I'm not able to reach up there, so you'll just have to feel it. If it doesn't feel loose at all, it's not moving, you can skip it. This window can get the trim around it. And again, you can decide together if you feel that you just want me to just make a nice detail once it's cleaned of the plaster meeting this bottom piece, or if attaching a small piece of wood as a plaster stop would look good. I'm fine with the first and can make it look really nice. Here's another place to pull out quite a lot of straw. And then we'll go inside the building. It's always a lot of things that you can kind of guess ahead of time, but you don't really know till you start getting into it. So you'll probably find new things out. It's very smelly in here right now. It seems like this got kind of moldy from just the moisture in here. So Jude's gonna assess whether or not to keep this or put new, but essentially having the ceiling done beforehand would be really, really nice. We also spoke about installing a cedar fencing baseboard around the bottom as like a plaster stop and extra protection for like a baseboard. So these are those panels. You'd also want to put the chicken wire in here, again after filling and taking any high points away. And the same thing with the windows in here. This window, that window, all these windows could get wood trim around them. This could be a really nice place for 1, 2 shelves, and potentially like a long shelf up there could be nice. Those are good things to do now before the plaster, is either put the shelves in or put in some kind of support that they could get attached to later. I think this around this door, any place where there's wood that's like more than 4 inches, more than just one of these pieces, it would be really good to do the screws and the straw clay first before plastering. What else do I see? You know, I think you're getting the gist of it. Same kind of thing. We can cover that piece of wood, and if so, let's prep it ahead of time. Another way to prep it potentially would be just attaching some burlap with staples. That's another approach for that one, unless you want to leave that one exposed, and then in that case just go ahead and bring the plaster back away from it. Sometimes it's nice to have exposed pieces of wood like that you can attach things to later, like, you know, pot holders, tools, coats. I'm just seeing what else I see. Yeah, and then I guess you know, everything will need to be cleared out of the building, and as much clearing out around the building as possible. This looks like a really good workspace area, so the more that this, you know, especially if we did get 10 participants and, you know, mixing, like if this could just be cleared and maybe some clearing back here. Those are my initial thoughts. I haven't talked with Jude about it, but clearing just to make space for making mixes and having bodies.